Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
It's great to be back.
Today we're tackling something that's been all over the headlines.
Yeah, it's been everywhere.
It's about J.K. Rowling and the whole trans rights debate.
Oh, yeah.
It's really blown up online.
Definitely a lot of strong feelings out there.
We're going to try and get past all that noise
Right.
to really look at what's going on.
Absolutely.
We've got articles,
Mm-hmm.
social media posts.
You even have stuff from the Harry Potter film stars.
Oh, yeah. Which is crazy.
Totally.
And you might be surprised to hear that even a detective novel, the one she published under her pseudonym, Robert Galbraith.
Oh, yeah. The Ink Black Heart.
Yeah, that one even got dragged into this whole thing.
It's wild how this debate has become so wide-reaching.
It really makes you think, huh?
Yeah, it touches on so many things.
Identity, healthcare, social change.
And it makes you question, like, what's the responsibility of public figures?
Okay, so before we get to the latest stuff, let's do a quick recap
Okay.
to remind everyone how we got here. So J.K. Rowling, right? Obviously, she's the author of the Harry Potter books. But she's also become pretty vocal about her views on sex and gender.
Yeah, those are definitely hot-button issues these days.
For sure.
And it seems like this all really exploded back in 2020.
That's right.
It was when she made those tweets about the phrase, people who menstruate.
Yeah, a lot of people saw that as transphobic.
Totally.
And it kind of sparked a huge backlash online.
And it didn't stop there.
No, not at all.
She kept making more statements about transgender people.
Right.
She said things like, if sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction.
Okay.
And erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives.
So she was really doubling down.
Yeah, she was definitely not backing away from the controversy.
Makes you wonder if she anticipated the reaction.
And that's important context for understanding how people reacted to her book, The Ink Black Heart, the one by Robert Galbraith.
Right.
Because the main character in the book is this YouTuber who gets attacked online for making a cartoon that people find offensive.
For all sorts of reasons.
And one of them being transphobia. So a lot of people saw this as Rowling basically writing a pity party for herself.
Interesting take.
Drawing parallels to her own experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it goes even deeper than that.
Whoa.
Because people weren't just critiquing the book itself.
What else then?
They were saying she lacked empathy.
Oh, wow.
It even brought up this whole debate about the death of the author.
Oh, that's a fascinating one.
Like, can you still enjoy the Harry Potter books
Yeah.
knowing that the author holds these views?
That's a tough question.
It's a real dilemma for a lot of fans.
Absolutely.
And then it gets even more complicated.
How so?
When you bring in the responses from the actors who were in the Harry Potter film.
Oh, right, because they owe their careers to her, in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
But they have their own values, too.
Right.
Interesting.
Like Chris Rankin.
Percy Weasley.
Yeah, he's been super vocal about this.
Has he?
He works a lot with LGBTQ plus charities.
That's right. I remember seeing that.
And he put out this really strong statement about how important it is to recognize and respect trans identities.
So he's on the other side of this debate.
Yeah. He basically said that when a trans person says they are male or female, that is what they are, and that is how we should treat them.
Powerful statement.
Yeah, it is.
Must have been a hard decision for him to speak out like that.
I think so.
On the one hand, he's grateful to Rowling for creating this whole world that launched his career.
Right.
But on the other hand, he has to stay true to his own beliefs.
Exactly.
It's a tough spot to be in.
And that tension is really clear in Daniel Radcliffe's response. He's the one who played Harry Potter.
Right, of course.
Back in 2020, he released a statement through the Trevor Project.
Oh, wow. So he went through an organization.
Yeah. It's a suicide prevention organization for LGBTQ plus youth.
Okay.
And in his statement, he directly supported trans women.
So he took a clear stance.
He even apologized to Harry Potter fans who were hurt by Rowling's comments.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's big.
He said he knew their experience with the books might be tarnished now.
That's a really interesting point.
Right.
Like, is he saying that Rowling has a responsibility to her fans because of the impact of her books?
Especially on young people.
It definitely raises that question.
And then you have Emma Watson. She played Hermione.
Right.
And she also tweeted support for trans people.
Okay.
But she also made this kind of subtle dig at Rowling.
Oh, really? When was this?
It was during the BAFTAs in 2022.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So Rebel Wilson was hosting, and she introduced Emma Watson as, like, a feminist, but we all know she's a witch.
Classic Rebel Wilson.
And then Emma Watson shot back and said, I'm here for all the witches.
Ooh, burn.
Yeah, it was a pretty pointed comment.
Definitely got people talking.
So now you have this situation where The stars of the movies are pushing back against the creator of their world.
That's pretty unique, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical Hollywood drama.
So how did Rowling react to all of this?
Well, things were quiet for a while.
Okay.
Until April 2024.
What happened then?
That's when the cast review came out.
Oh, right. The big study in the UK.
Yeah, the one about gender identity services for young people.
It was a major report.
Definitely a key piece of this whole puzzle.
Yeah. We should probably make sure we all understand what it said.
Absolutely.
So basically, one of the biggest findings was that there wasn't enough evidence to support medical intervention.
Like puberty blockers and hormone therapy?
Yeah, especially for minors.
Right.
They said there's still a lot we don't know about the potential effects of these treatments.
Especially long-term effects.
Right.
And since adolescence is such a time of rapid change,
Right.
they recommended a more cautious approach to treatment.
Until there's more research, basically.
Exactly. So this cast review really throws a wrench into things, huh?
It does, doesn't it?
You have people on both sides who feel like it proves their point, but at the same time, everyone's a little worried about what it means.
Yeah, it definitely complicates things.
Because it's not a simple for or against kind of report.
It's definitely not.
Like, it acknowledges that gender dysphoria is real.
And that it causes real distress.
But it's also saying we need more research before we jump into medical interventions.
Especially for young people.
Exactly.
It's advocating for a more cautious approach.
So how did Rowling react to all this?
Well, she was very public about supporting the review.
Okay.
But she also went further than that.
Oh.
She said that it proved kids are being harmed by transitioning.
Like irreversibly harmed.
Yeah, she used that word.
Wow. So she is basically saying the cast review backs up her stance?
Pretty much, yeah.
And she even specifically called out the celebrities who had spoken out against her.
Like Radcliffe and Watson?
Yep.
The one she called celebrity mouthpieces?
Oh, right.
So it seems like the cast review really emboldened her to double down on her position.
It's interesting how a report like that can really shift the momentum in a debate like this.
For sure, it gives people ammunition. You know?
So what did the actors say back to her?
Well, this is where things get even crazier.
Oh, boy.
It wasn't actually a direct response from them.
Okay.
It started with a fan online.
Uh-huh.
This fan suggested that Rowling should only forgive Radcliffe and Watson.
Forgive them.
Yeah, if they apologize to her.
For their stance on trans rights.
Exactly.
Wow. I bet that didn't go over well.
You can imagine.
So what did Rowling say?
She basically said no way.
She wouldn't accept their apology,
Nope.
even if they did apologize.
She said they were supporting a movement that's eroding women's rights.
Wow. Okay.
And get this, she said they should actually be apologizing to people who have detransitioned.
Wait, hold on. What does detransition mean?
Oh, good point. I should clarify that.
Yeah.
It's when someone who has transitioned decides to go back to living as their sex assigned at birth.
Okay.
So they might have gone through social, medical, or legal transitions.
Uh-huh.
And then, for whatever reason, they decide to revert back.
So it's like the reverse of transitioning.
Exactly.
It sounds really complicated.
It is. There are a lot of factors involved.
So Rowling is basically saying that supporting trans rights is somehow harmful to women.
That's the argument she's making.
And are people buying it?
Well, it definitely resonates with some people.
Okay.
But it's important to point out that a lot of people see those issues as separate.
Like, you can support trans rights without taking away women's rights.
Exactly.
So even though this whole exchange happened online,
And it wasn't even directly between Rowling and the actors.
it still blew up.
Oh, yeah, the internet went wild.
What were people saying?
Well, some people were on Rowling's side.
Okay.
They were like, good for her for sticking to her guns,
Yeah.
not backing down from what she believes.
You know, freedom of speech and all that.
Exactly.
But then others were really critical of her.
Especially that whole thing about Radcliffe and Watson apologizing to her.
Yeah, that seems kind of ridiculous.
Right, like they were just trying to be supportive of trans people.
Showing compassion.
And she wants them to apologize for that.
This whole thing just seems so personal and emotional now.
It is, isn't it?
Like, is there even any way to have a productive conversation about this anymore?
That's a good question.
I mean, everyone's so fired up.
It makes you wonder if we've lost the ability to just disagree respectfully.
Or to try and understand someone else's point of view.
That's a big challenge we're facing these days.
Especially online.
It's like the internet is designed to make us fight with each other.
And it doesn't help that we're talking about J.K. Rowling.
Right. She's got such a huge platform.
And her books have had such a big impact on so many people.
It's like this controversy feels like a personal betrayal to some fans.
Yeah.
Because they love Harry Potter so much.
Right.
And now they have to grapple with the fact that the author have these views.
And it brings us back to that whole death of the author thing.
Can you separate the art from the artist?
Yeah, especially when the artist is still alive and kicking.
And actively engaging in these debates.
And saying things that could be harmful to certain groups.
It's definitely not a simple issue.
It makes you think about your own values.
And your responsibility as a reader and a consumer.
Okay, so we've talked about Rowling's stance.
And the reactions from the Harry Potter actors.
And the whole cast review thing.
But I feel like we haven't really dug into what the cast review actually said.
You're right, we've kind of skimmed over the details.
Maybe we should take a closer look at the substance of the report.
Yeah, and why it's become such a flashpoint in this whole debate. So let's dig into those details then. What were some of the specific concerns the cast review raised about medical intervention, especially for minors?
Well, one of the biggest things was the lack of long-term studies.
Okay.
On the effects of puberty blockers and hormone therapy.
Especially on young people.
Right, because we're talking about kids who are still developing.
Right.
And the review basically said we don't know enough yet about the potential physical and psychological impacts.
That makes sense.
Especially when you start these treatments during adolescence.
Yeah.
Because that's already such a time of massive change.
So they're saying we need to be more cautious.
Exactly.
Until we have more data.
More research is crucial.
And is everyone on board with that?
Well, that's where the debate gets really heated.
Okay.
Because some people argue that the evidence we do have is enough.
Enough to justify these treatments.
Right. Because for some young people, gender dysphoria is causing them serious distress.
Okay.
And they say delaying treatment can have really negative consequences.
For their mental health.
Exactly.
So it's like a balancing act.
It is.
Weighing the potential risks against the potential benefits.
And trying to figure out what's best for each individual.
It's never easy.
No, it's not.
So what are some of the arguments in favor of medical intervention?
Well, supporters of these treatments point to studies that show that gender-affirming care can really improve mental health outcomes for trans people.
Okay.
That includes hormone therapy and surgeries. And they say that denying access to these treatments can lead to more problems.
Like anxiety and depression.
Exactly.
Even suicidal thoughts.
That's the big concern.
So they're saying the benefits outweigh the risks.
Yes, especially when you consider the mental health risks of not providing these treatments.
And I guess for a lot of trans people, getting these treatments is a crucial part of living authentically.
Right. It's about aligning their body with their gender identity.
So you have these two sides, both making valid points.
And it becomes a question of how we balance those individual needs.
With the concerns of society as a whole.
And that's the heart of this debate.
It's tricky. Because the past review, while it did call for more research, it also said that delaying or denying access to these treatments can cause real harm. So it's not a simple black and white issue.
Certainly not.
And it's especially tough for trans youth.
Right. They're the ones caught in the middle of all this.
And it's not just about the medical stuff. It's about creating a society where trans people feel safe and accepted.
Right. Where they feel supported.
And where their rights are respected.
Absolutely.
Their right to self-determination.
To decide what happens to their own body.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to J.K. Rowling.
And the power of her words.
Because whether you agree with her or not,
she has a massive platform.
And her words have an impact.
Especially with Harry Potter being so beloved.
And that's where the whole freedom of speech thing gets really complicated.
Because everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Right. But when someone with that much influence says things that could be harmful,
we have to at least call those views into question.
And hold them accountable.
So where do we go from here?
That's the big question.
How do we move forward in a way that respects everyone?
And protects trans people.
I mean, it feels impossible sometimes.
I know it can feel that way.
Everyone's so entrenched in their own position.
It's true. But I think the first step is recognizing the complexity of this issue. Understanding that there are legitimate concerns on all sides.
We need to move past the yelling and the name-calling.
And actually try to have a conversation.
Easier said than done.
For sure, especially online.
But maybe it starts with each of us.
Choosing to listen.
To seek out different perspectives.
To engage in respectful debate.
To educate ourselves.
And challenge our own biases.
And to center the voices of those who are most affected.
Those are all good places to start.
So what you're saying is real change starts with individual choices.
I think so.
We all have a role to play.
In making the world a more inclusive place.
That's a powerful thought. So knowing what we know now about this whole debate, how do you think public figures should navigate these controversial issues?
That's a tough one.
Especially ones that impact vulnerable communities.
I don't have all the answers.
But it's something we all need to think about.
Because in a way, we all have a platform.
Even if it's just our friends and family.
We all have influence.
And our words have power.
Sometimes I think the real magic of stories isn't just about escaping into other worlds.
It's about how those worlds can inspire us.
To face the challenges in our own world.
And to work towards a better future. Well said. Until next time, keep diving deep.